Today we uncover a story that lingers like doubt in the mind. You'll witness how one unanswered call for help becomes a lifetime sentence. It's Maya's apartment, where an ex's text revives old wounds. Beneath the surface apology lurks control disguised as care, a fact too terrifying to face alone. You will remember this. The dim morning light filtered through the half-drawn blinds of Maya's apartment, casting long shadows across the cluttered coffee table. Fairy lights strung haphazardly along the wall flickered softly, their warm glow a feeble attempt to chase away the chill that always seemed to linger here. Maya sat cross-legged on the worn couch, notebook balanced on her knees, pen hovering as she traced the edges of yesterday's entry. The words blurred, fragments of doubt, half-formed pleas for permission to breathe without apology. A sharp ping shattered the quiet. Her phone lit up on the table, the screen glowing with a name she hadn't let herself say aloud in weeks. Alex. She was the victim here, wasn't she? The one who'd escaped the endless cycle of his needs eclipsing hers. Yet the pull was magnetic, that old responsibility coiling around her ribs. As the guilt crested, a flicker of something else stirred. Doubt, sharp as a question mark. What if this isn't love? What if it's just control, mine or his? She paused, staring at the blank message on her phone. For the first time, she let the silence stretch, not filling it with excuses or promises. Instead, she wrote, "I need support, for me." Therapy note. Boundaries aren't betrayal. The unsent reply stared back from the screen, a digital echo of what she wouldn't say, a threshold she chose not to cross. Could she really let it go unanswered? Step into quiet without the chain snapping back? The fairy lights hummed softly, illuminating the page, but the answer hung unspoken in the air. As the morning's quiet reflection deepened, the weight of memory began to pull her under. The screen fades to a soft blur, Maya's apartment dissolving into fragments of memory. She sits frozen on the edge of her bed, phone clutched like a lifeline, the ex's message glowing unanswered. Her breath hitches, eyes distant, as the world tilts into montage. Layers of yesterday bleeding over today, a fractured mirror reflecting the weight she's carried. Cut 2, rain-slicked street, 2 years back. Maya's arm hooks through his, pulling him from the curb where he slumped after another fight. "It's okay," her voiceover murmurs, tender but edged with plea. "I can fix this. You need me." She wipes his tears, ignoring the chill seeping into her own coat, her smile a mask over the knot in her gut. Guilt coils there already. How could she not stay? Loving meant this. Her body as shield, her nights as balm for his storms. Layered over, kitchen haze, dawn light filtering through half-drawn blinds. He's pacing, voice rising in accusation. "You never listen." And she shrinks, hands fluttering to soothe. "I'm sorry," she whispers in voiceover, the words a reflex. "If I just try harder." She brews coffee for 2, her hands trembling as she folds his laundry, each crease a surrender. The guilt blooms thicker, a vine twisting her ribs. What if her leaving now echoes his abandonment? Proof in every caretaking act. Love was sacrifice, her worth in his need. Flash. Park bench, autumn leaves swirling. He's withdrawn, eyes hollow from whatever demon chased him that week. Maya leans in, voice soft. "Tell me everything. I'll hold it." She absorbs his rage, his sorrow, her own dreams shelved like forgotten mail. Voiceover fractures. Wasn't this devotion? Or just fear wearing kindness's face? The montage ripples, her present self overlaying the past. Now she watches from afar, not diving in to save, but observing the pattern etch itself clear. Anger and care, once tangled in that locked box of trust she built for them both, now untethered. Her desire to help, not duty, but a shield against the terror of being unseen. The layers slow, guilt's heavy fog thinning to a haze of recognition. In the reflection of these stacked moments, Maya sees not blame, but a mechanism. Guilt as the chain she forged, not the moral anchor she thought. Can she trace the template without the pull of self-recrimination dragging her under? The montage holds, unanswered, as her eyes refocus on the phone, the present reclaiming her. With the echoes of the past fading, Maya gathered her resolve and stepped toward the next layer of her journey. The therapy office bathed in soft afternoon light, filtered through half-drawn blinds that cast elongated shadows across the worn leather couch. Maya sat perched on its edge, fingers twisting the hem of her sweater, her gaze fixed on the stone cup on Dr. Bennett's desk, a simple, unyielding vessel, cool gray and textured like river-worn pebble, holding nothing but the faint steam of forgotten herbal tea. "I don't know why it still hits me like this," Maya said, her voice a tentative thread, unraveling in the quiet space. "I left because it was killing me. His rages, the way I'd twist myself into knots to fix him. But every time I think about moving on, this weight settles in, like I'm the one who failed. If I stop feeling guilty, does that make me the monster he said I was?" Dr. Bennett leaned forward slightly, her posture open, eyes steady behind wire-rimmed glasses. No rush in her nod, just a gentle anchor. "Tell me more about that weight. Where does it live in you right now?" Maya's breath hitched, the guilt coiling tight in her chest, a familiar vice that blurred her vision. "It's like I was supposed to stay. Save us both. Leaving feels like I abandoned him to drown, even though I was the one gasping for air." Her words tumbled out, laced with the old shame, pulling her inward, away from the room's calm. The therapist paused, glancing at the stone cup as if it mirrored the solidity of the moment. "Maya, what if that guilt isn't a verdict on your morality? What if it's a survival echo? A signal your body learned long ago, in the chaos, to keep you alert, to protect what was left of you?" Dr. Bennett's tone was measured, inviting, not accusatory. Guilt like this often roots in codependency soil. It kept you tethered, yes. But leaving? That was your nervous system saying, enough. Prioritize survival. Not failure, not betrayal. Maya's fingers stilled, her eyes lifting to meet Dr. Bennett's. The vice loosened, just a fraction, as understanding flickered, a quiet dawn piercing the fog. She reached out absently, tracing the cup's edge, its unmovable weight grounding her. It wasn't fragile porcelain, ready to shatter. It held firm, enduring. "But is surviving enough?" Maya murmured, the question hanging, unanswered, in the air between them. "Or does it demand I carry more?" Dr. Bennett smiled faintly, the session's pull toward healing now a shared current. "That's what we're here to explore. You've already taken the first step by naming it." As the therapy session's insights lingered, Maya sought further connection in a gathering of shared stories. The community center's back room hummed with the soft creak of folding chairs arranged in a loose circle, wooden floors worn smooth by countless gatherings. Dim lamps cast a warm glow over the faces. Strangers turned tentative allies, their knees nearly touching in the intimate ring. Maya sat cross-legged on her cushion, fingers twisting the hem of her sweater, the circle's curve both enclosing and exposing. It felt like a threshold, this loop of shared silence, where words could spill or stick. Lena, across from her, leaned forward, her voice a low thread weaving through the hush. Dark curls framed eyes that darted to the floor, then lifted defiantly. "I thought leaving him was the most selfish thing I'd ever done," she said, the confession landing like a stone in still water. He'd scream, break things, then cry, say I was his only anchor. So I stayed, telling myself it was love, not chains. But walking away, that made me the villain in my own head. Society whispers you're supposed to fix them, right? Or you're heartless. The circle held its breath, nods rippling like echoes. Maya's chest tightened, shame blooming hot in her throat, familiar, insistent. She pictured her ex's last text, unread but etched. "You left me drowning." Wasn't that her story too? The guilt coiled tighter, a reflex, whispering she deserved the weight. Her hands clenched. She wanted to shrink, to apologize for even being here, for daring to breathe without his shadow. But Lena's words hung in the air, pulling at the edges of Maya's resolve. It took years to see it. Lena continued, her gaze sweeping the group, landing briefly on Maya. "Shame isn't loyalty. It's the cage they built, and we keep the lock." A murmur of agreement stirred the circle, bodies leaning in, the ring contracting like a heartbeat. Maya felt it then, the subtle shift. Eyes on her, not judging, but witnessing. Not alone in the loop of her pain, but part of it. The shame cracked, just a hairline fracture, letting awareness seep through. Her guilt wasn't unique, not a badge of virtue, but a script repeated in every story here. Control disguised as duty. Could she rewrite it? Step out from under those expectations, the ones that pinned her like invisible strings? The circle waited, open, as the question lingered unspoken in the warm light. Following the group's resonance, Maya turned inward once more, facing the camera's unflinching gaze. The camera lens catches Maya in a soft pool of lamplight, her apartment's cluttered corners fading into shadow. She sits cross-legged on the worn couch, knees drawn up like a shield, fingers twisting the hem of her sweater. The red light blinks steadily, unblinking, a silent eye that demands truth without mercy. She exhales, voice barely above a whisper, as if testing the air for cracks. "It's like this weight," she starts, eyes flicking to the lens then away. "Guilt, I mean. It creeps in every time I even think about saying yes to something for myself. Like last week, Noah suggested we grab coffee, just wander the park, no agenda. And I froze. What if he's having a bad day? What if I'm supposed to check on him? The messages still come, you know. Not demanding, just enough to remind me I'm the one who left the mess." Her breath hitches, the words tumbling slower now, laced with that familiar ache in her chest, a tightness that pins her choices in place. She leans forward, closer to the camera, as if it might absorb the confession. It paralyzes me. I see joy ahead, a laugh, a step without looking back, and guilt whispers, "But you owe this. You walked away. What kind of person does that make you? Without it, who am I? Selfish? Free?" The fear flickers in her eyes, raw and unguarded. She's speaking without the usual excuses, no softening the edges with, "But I tried," or "He needed me." Just her, exposed. Yet as she speaks, something shifts. The knot loosens, just a fraction. She meets the lens fully now, holding it like a mirror, not a judge. Maybe it's not a chain. Maybe it's just signaling something, telling me to look closer, not run back. Her shoulders ease, a tentative openness blooming in the pause, the air between her and the camera warming. What pulls harder? The quick unraveling of that guilt or this honest frame of herself, captured and real? The red light holds steady, waiting. Building on this vulnerability, Maya returned to therapy for deeper tools. The therapy office bathed in soft afternoon light, walls lined with muted greens and a single potted fern nodding in the corner. Maya sat on the edge of the couch, fingers twisting the hem of her sweater, her mind a whirl of half-formed doubts. Dr. Bennett leaned forward in her armchair, her voice steady, like a guide through fog. Guilt isn't just an emotion, Maya. It's wired into your brain's survival toolkit, Dr. Bennett said, pulling a marker from her desk and sketching on a small whiteboard. Lines bloomed into a neural scheme, clusters of neurons firing like distant stars, pathways looping in tight, habitual circuits. See here? The amygdala lights up first, a threat detector from our earliest days. It floods you with cortisol, screaming danger when old patterns resurface. But that guilt loop? It's often just an echo, a neural shortcut from past chaos, not a true measure of your responsibility. Maya's gaze fixed on the diagram, the lines twisting like the strings in her chest. If guilt's just biology, does that make my leaving him? Nothing? Just a glitch? The thought clawed at her, doubt thickening the air. She shifted, voice tight. But what if it's not? What if ignoring it means I'm dodging what I owe? He was broken, and I walked away. Isn't that on me? Dr. Bennett paused, her eyes kind but unflinching, the scheme hovering between them like a map of hidden terrain. It's valid to fear that. Responsibility matters. It's why we're here. But let's separate the signal from the noise. Guilt as a habit keeps you tethered. Genuine accountability asks what serves healing now, for you and others. She set the marker down, gesturing for Maya to mirror her. Try this grounding. Place one hand on your heart, the other on your belly. Breathe in for 4. Feel the rise. Hold. Out for 4. Notice the guilt without chasing it. Is it a warning to act, or just the old wire sparking? Maya hesitated, then complied, palms pressing warm against fabric. Inhale. The doubts swirled, sharp as thorns. Am I really responsible if I let this go? Exhale, slower now, the neural lines in her mind blurring, softening. The room steadied, her breath synced with the fern's subtle sway. For the first time, the weight felt observable, not devouring. A pulse, not a verdict. Understanding flickered, tentative, like light piercing the scheme's loops. As the timer chimed softly, Dr. Bennett smiled. Tools like this interrupt the automatic pull. Next trigger, you'll have a choice. Maya nodded, the question lingering unspoken. Could she untangle the habit from what truly mattered, without losing her moral footing? Inspired by these practices, Maya turned to a personal ritual at home. Maya sat at her cluttered kitchen table, the late afternoon sun slanting through the window like a hesitant intruder. Her apartment felt smaller today, the fairy light strung along the wall flickering faintly against the gathering dusk. In front of her lay a single sheet of cream-colored paper, untouched, and a pen that she'd gripped so tightly her knuckles ached. The unsent letter. It mocked her from the page, blank and expectant. Her heart raced, a familiar knot twisting in her chest, anxiety clawing at the edges of her resolve. Do I owe this? The question looped in her mind as she finally pressed the pen to paper, the ink blooming in hesitant loops. Dear old Maya, she began, her hand trembling. She wanted to explain it all. The endless nights smoothing over his storms, the way she twisted herself into his anchor, believing her worth lay in holding him steady. But the words caught. Explanation felt like duty, like slipping back into the role of caretaker, justifying every fracture just to prove she hadn't abandoned him. No, she paused, breath shallow, staring at the half-formed sentence. The anxiety surged, hot and insistent, whispering that forgiveness without apology was selfish, that leaving the past unexplained meant erasing her own pain. Her fingers hovered, the pen a fragile bridge between then and now. Instead, she wrote, "You did what you knew. You loved fiercely because survival demanded it." The words surprised her, soft and unburdened. Not an accusation, but a quiet acknowledgement. No blame, no plea for absolution from shadows long gone. As the lines filled the page, fragments of regret softened into compassion. The knot began to loosen. She described the girl who journaled in the dark, who entered therapy doors with guilt as her shadow, but now chose to witness rather than atone. "You don't need to explain," she scrawled, the motion steadying, "because your leaving was the first act of care. For you." The anxiety ebbed into something gentler, a humble surrender, like exhaling after holding breath too long. The letter ended not with closure, but with space. An invitation to observe the guilt as it arose, a signal, not a sentence. She folded the paper carefully, sliding it into a drawer beside the fairy light's switch. Unsent, unseen by anyone but herself. The apartment breathed easier now, the shadows retreating. But as she leaned back, the question lingered, unanswered in the air. Could she truly leave the past without one last justification? Soon after, a new trigger tested her growing awareness at the apartment's edge. The apartment door creaked open, spilling midday light across the cluttered floor like an uninvited guest. Maya stood frozen in the threshold, grocery bag dangling from her wrist, the faint scent of rain-soaked earth wafting in. The same damp chill that always pulled her back to that last fight, his voice cracking like thunder outside their old window. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, insistent, the screen lighting up with his name. Alex. Another plea, probably. "Miss you. Need to talk." The words she'd ignored for weeks clawed at her now, automatic as a reflex. Her breath hitched, the old pull tightening in her chest. Guilt, that familiar vice, whispering she owed him this, owed an answer, owed the weight of his unraveling. Fingers itched toward the phone, toward typing the sorry that would tether her again, drag her under. But Dr. Bennett's voice echoed, soft and steady from their last session. "Notice it. Breathe into the space." Maya paused, right there on the doorway's edge, one foot in the dim hall of memory, the other rooted in the sun-warmed entry. The threshold hummed with possibility, a line she could choose not to cross. Inhale. The air filled her lungs, cool and deliberate, pushing back the fog. Exhale. The impulse flickered, not a command, but a shadow, slipping through her awareness like smoke. She set the bag down, pulled out her journal instead, pages worn from weeks of this quiet rebellion. "Trigger. His name on the screen," she scribbled, hand steady. "Guilt rises, hot, urgent. But I see it now. Not me. Just a signal. No judgment, no rush to flee into distraction." The words anchored her, the act of naming carving out room. She straightened, phone silent in her pocket, and stepped fully inside, closing the door with a soft click. The space between urge and response lingered, vast and hers. Could she hold it? The question hung, unanswered, as she moved toward the couch, toward the afternoon's small freedoms, therapy waiting like a promise, not a chain. Later that week, support from a friend offered another opportunity to practice. The late afternoon sun filtered through the city's canopy of leaves, casting dappled shadows on the sidewalk as Noah tugged Maya's arm with playful insistence. "Come on. No more hiding in that apartment. We're hitting the park. Spontaneous edition." His grin was wide, unyielding, the kind that had pulled her through darker days before. Maya hesitated at her doorstep, phone buzzing in her pocket like a guilty secret. Another message from him, her ex, pinging with that familiar plea disguised as concern. The old pull tugged at her. Answer, soothe, step back into the role she'd outgrown. She swallowed, the weight of obligation pressing like a hand on her shoulder. Noah, maybe not today. I have stuff to... But he was already steering her down the street, his energy a gentle bulldozer. Inside, the conflict churned. Say no and risk the fracture of their easy rhythm, or submit and let the day dissolve into her default servitude. Choice hung there, sharp and insistent, demanding she grab it. They wandered into the park, the air thick with blooming jasmine and distant laughter. Noah veered toward a shortcut through the denser trees. This way, quicker to the lake. You game? His eyes sparkled with invitation. But Maya's phone vibrated again, the screen lighting up with words that clawed at her resolve. Just checking in. Miss you. The dutiful part of her screamed to reply, to mend the invisible tear. But Dr. Bennett's voice echoed in her mind. Guilt as a signal, not a chain. She stopped, feet rooted. No, she said, the words slipping out soft but firm, surprising even herself. Not that way. Let's take the long path. I want to walk slower. Noah paused, tilting his head, his expression shifting from surprise to quiet pride. He nodded, no questions, just a mirror reflecting her budding strength. Your call, Maya. Lead on. Relief bloomed in her chest, warm and unfamiliar, chasing away the submission's chill. No self-recrimination, no silencing herself for harmony's sake. As they looped along the winding trail, the tension uncoiled, her steps lighter, the buzz of the phone ignored in her pocket. They passed a cluster of old oaks strung with fairy lights, remnants of some forgotten festival, twinkling faintly even in daylight. Maya reached out, fingers brushing the warm bulbs, a soft glow illuminating the shadows under the branches. It felt like permission, these tiny lights chasing darkness from hidden corners. By the lake's edge, laughter bubbled up as Noah splashed water at her playfully. Joy settled in, tentative but real, as Maya realized the boundary hadn't betrayed. It had freed. But in the quiet spaces between their words, the question lingered. Could she refuse without it echoing as abandonment? In the days that followed, Maya reached the culmination of her release. The camera lingers on Maya's hands, trembling slightly as they hover over the cluttered nightstand in her dimly lit apartment. A small, tarnished locket, gift from him, chain of whispered promises, rests there, catching the faint glow from the string of fairy lights draped along the wall. They've flickered erratically these past months, bulbs dimming like her resolve, illuminating shadows of doubt that pool in the corners of the room. She picks up the locket, fingers tracing its cool surface, and a wave of internal storm brews. What if letting go means betraying the love she once poured into saving him? Happiness feels like a thief, stealing her moral anchor, leaving her adrift in selfishness. Her breath catches, chest tight with the old guilt's grip. A signal, not a sentence, she reminds herself, echoing Dr. Bennett's calm voice from their last session. The fairy lights pulse softly now, as if urging her forward, their warm amber glow cutting through the cool blue haze of memory. Maya stands, crossing to the window where moonlight filters through half-drawn blinds. In her mind, flashes. Noah's steady gaze during their park walk, his nod of quiet approval when she said no without apology. Dr. Bennett's knowing smile in the therapy office, affirming this step as reclamation, not abandonment. She opens the locket one final time, peering at the faded photo inside, them entangled in codependence's web. Doubt surges. Can she release this burden and still stay true to the caretaker she was raised to be? Her heart races, But she doesn't judge the fear. She observes it, lets it wash over like a tide receding. With deliberate slowness, Maya closes the locket and slips it into the drawer of her desk. A simple wooden box. Not destruction, but deliberate distance. No salvaging, no return to rescue. The fairy lights brighten as she straightens, their glow spreading like dawn across the cluttered space, chasing shadows from the shelves lined with journals and half-read books on healing. Stepping back, Maya exhales, a lightness blooming in her core, tentative but real. My worth isn't in being needed, she whispers aloud, voice steadying into the quiet room, a voiceover threading through the montage like a lifeline. It's in choosing joy for myself. The camera pulls out, framing her silhouette against the window, fairy lights haloing her form. Support echoes in the ether. Noah's text from earlier, proud of you. Dr. Bennett's words, this is your autonomy. Guilt lingers as a soft hum, redirectable now toward self-care, not chains. As she turns toward the door, threshold symbolizing the step beyond, hope flickers brighter than doubt ever did. The question hangs, unanswered yet alive. Can she let go and remain faithful to her truest self? The light steady, glowing full.